Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Smooth it off. You dig? All righty. We got threes, we got twos, and then there is one. Lights, camera, action. Here we are. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another week in the house of Say Something, Please, Why Don't You?
Mm-hmm.
So Say Something fam, welcome back to the Say Something podcast. We are always happy to have a lot of sports to talk about. We did do another quick hiatus, as they say. Life has lifed. We've had naps come into play. We got all types of good stuff for y'all. But just know the Say Something team is here. Reek is here. Reek is awake. We are all happy for that. Once we get the soundtrack, we're going to get the clapping going right there, where it'll just be us applauding. But in all seriousness, me and Mitch were just concerned last week or whatever week that was.
Thought our mans went down.
Yeah, because it's not like Reek to be a no-show, not only physically but also with the text and the call. So, like we said, always good to check in on your people. That's why all the mental health stuff, that we do in the beginning matters, and if you care for your people, it's never bad to show it. So we were concerned, and luckily at 3:46, which is, usually we meet at like 7:30 p.m., that was 3:46 in the morning. So, he got a good nap in. It wasn't one of those fake naps. I was telling Mitch, I was like, that's really actually just sleep.
That's just sleep.
That wasn't a nap. That boy that's a whole nother day now. So, yeah, you did sleep. You just got up early.
Your days start at 4:30 then.
Right. But no, it was just good to know that everything was cool. We got the text, I overslept. No worries. As we said, life happens.
Yeah.
So we are here today. We have an awesome agenda because we did skip a week. And as you know, sports doesn't stop for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime we miss out, we hope that the next week we make sure that you don't. And we catch you up on everything else that may have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before we do any of that, let's jump into our tradition, as we say every time. Look to your left, look to your right, look to your phone. If you got somebody you care about, take a little bit of time, just check in, say what's going on, say what's up. Just like I'm about to do right now. So, Mitch, what's going on? How are you? Tell the people.
Man, I've been doing good. Everything's been great. I've been doing a lot of work. Been out in the sun, man. It's been hot out here in the bed. Been baking. Been getting crazy farmer's tan. Been having to roll the sleeves up just to even things up a little bit.
Right.
But other than that, went to my first Golden State Valkyries game. Saw the ladies play against the New York Liberty.
The V's.
Unfortunately, at the end of the game, some turnovers, lack of execution. Liberty came out on top. Sabrina Ionescu just kind of sealed it away with a bunch of free throws at the end of the game. But great environment. If you are around in the Bay, go check out the Valkyrie. The games are very, very fun and always a good time. But other than that, man, everything's been good. How about yourself?
Cooling, man. I'm good. Having a great time with summer, man. As I've figured out, I do enjoy having summers in some sense, which is only because of the school schedule right now. So a lot to debate for me because I'm sure enjoying it, embracing it. Yet I am still in summer school. So for all of you thinking, lazy Benny, no, we're still chasing 4.0s. But I do like mental breaks. I do see a lot going on right now, in terms of the fact that I'm studying in the mental health field of sorts and around there. You're seeing a lot of people burning out and doing things in a way that, is just not leaving enough room for them. And, a lot of us are taught, to chase the dollar. And, the hustle's good, right? But, not all cultures believe in that, in the same way. You look at Hawaii, you look at some other places. They value, relaxation, family time, those
community.
Community, those things would come above just the flat line of the materials and making whatever you make. So I'm always trying to keep that balance in mind as I'm ascending through this higher education and then deciding as well in terms of my field placement. I want a balance between work and life. And I think I am one of those people that will put that balance above a lot of things. So, I've just been taking note of that and using some of this summer for self-care while also studying because it's research that I'm taking this summer. So if anybody's taking research or if you're about to, you either feel me or you're going to feel me. Okay? Not the greatest But I do have somewhat of an analytical mind, so I do think it helps there somewhat. But woo, good luck to y'all if y'all are going to take one of those. Because as I've said, research is just, I don't think it's going to be my thing in the long run. So let's get to the show.
Let's get it.
Check-ins always feel good. And so we got to check in on sports as well, right? So we'll start off in the NBA. Thunder win the finals. Little baby golf clap going on here, just a little in the circle.
Round
you
of
can get
applause.
that, you know what I mean? Yes, sir. Very interesting, set of circumstances. Thunder did dominate all season.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really too much extra. Read all about it when it comes to what they did all year. It was just win.
Yeah.
They did it in a very consistent fashion. They were consistently getting better as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of just good basketball throughout the year, most people would say numerically, statistically, and eye test wise, the Thunder were the team that did it for the longest. So it's, I guess, fitting in a certain way that they would win it. However, Halliburton gets injured in Game 7. It did go Game 7, which I think a lot of people weren't expecting Indiana to take them Game 7. And honestly, the way it was looking in Game 7 before Halliburton went down, he was 3 for 4, 3 threes. He was looking like he was hot.
Right.
He was looking like he had the moment in him as they were trying to, stab him with, or, slap him with that good old trademark right there and give him a nickname, which I don't know about. But, very sad to see him go down with an Achilles. A really rough injury. Takes about a year. But obviously completely changed that game, and it wasn't even a blowout. What ifs are terrible, but also what ifs do nothing for you other than keep you up at night. So, that is what it is. That's how the cookie crumbled. Do you want to say anything specifically about the finals? This is your stage to do so. Mitch, go ahead.
I just thought it was pretty cool how it went 7 games. That's not usually pretty normal over the last couple of years. It's pretty decided already, which we thought in this series it kind of was going to be. I know Indiana played very well all the way up until the very end, but I think everybody did expect OKC to come out on top, and people were just a little more surprised that it took 7 games for them to do it. I think it shows that maybe even though these guys did end up winning, that some of this youth playing down to their competition for some of the games, maybe thinking, hey, we're going to coast through this, no problems, kind of got them on their heels a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of underestimated how easy or how difficult it was going to be to win the championship. But I think they also had a perfect opponent in terms of a weaker East Side team to play against, to where like a lot of their mistakes kind of went under the way because Indiana was making just as many mistakes. You see in the end of the game play with Benedict Mathurin
missing all those free throws,
just not being able to execute at the end of games, made it really tough for the Indiana Pacers. And then, like we're saying, Tyrese Halliburton being hobbled and then ultimately out of the game in Game 7, which you say started off 3 for 3 from 3. So things could have been different. And I think that's what the Pacers really showed throughout the whole series, is that OKC we're not just going to hand it to you. And we're not just going to fold because our best player is gone. We got other guys who have egos, who are ready to step up. I mean, I'm excited personally to see Nembhard come out next season as the starter without Tyrese Halliburton being able to play for the season. I think he's going to be somebody who's going to ascend to another level in his gameplay, because he really showed out during this season for the Pacers. But again, I think I may be living in the past a little bit. I guess my era in terms of like youth watching as a fan was dominated by super teams, where it's like, hey, we have 3 of the biggest stars in all of basketball. We're going to try and win against everybody. This year, it seemed like 2 teams, complete teams, were out there. Yeah, we have a Shai Gilgeous and a Tyrese, but this is their coming out season. You know what I mean? This is their first time rising and shining. And so it just seemed like a team effort more than, hey, we have these ultimate superstars that are putting us over the top. And I feel like I've said this before in the past, and again, could just be me being an old head, but I don't think this team would even – I don't even think it would be a 7-game series against the KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond team. So, and I've been hearing and watching TV and seeing how everybody's like, is this a historic team? Is this like a historically great team? And I'm just like you said, the statistics all show and the record this year shows and the consistency. But at the end of the day, for me personally, I just am like, I mean, yeah, they're all right. But compared to the all-time great teams, I really don't think they really compare. I think this was just a very, very good and somewhat overachieving kind of season for a very young team. That when there were a little bit more veteran teams in the playoffs in the past, these kind of teams have been knocked out. But then now these guys are going against lesser teams like the Minnesotas, which is like they're just as unproven as you guys. So it kind of is a coin flip. But that just goes to show that the league is now like becoming more competitive and there's more talent spread out, and it does take a full team. So got to take the good with what I might think is bad. But overall, I thought the series was cool to watch. But the Warriors ain't in it, whatever.
Right. I do think some of it is because of the payroll obviously has changed since that, like, we caught a really dope window with that whole contract situation with KD coming off of Steph
all the time.
He was, only getting paid $10 million a year. So like they really finessed it, and it was right before all those aprons. Right. And so now that the aprons are involved, I think a lot of teams have been forced to take a different route with how they build a team and with how you construct it. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. But I think it's more due to the fact that because of these payrolls, it also in turn makes some of these smaller market teams have more of a shot as well, which I think was the league's kind of whole stance on it in the first place. And so, I just think that it's hard to compete with that Warriors team, and it's hard to compete with the Heat teams. But also, if you look at the Heat teams, like only the Warriors team, in my opinion, of the super teams, except for if you go back in the day to the OG teams, the Warriors team is the only one that was a super team and they were deep. All these other super teams were not deep at all. It was just like, yo, if you don't get this done, bro, what are
you talking about? Leon Poe on the Celtics?
We have nothing for you. You know what I mean? Like
Big Baby Davis back then.
Mario Chalmers and like. Look those rosters up. You know what I mean? Them boys are either podcasting or nobody even wants their opinion. But, I think that was just a very rare time. And I think also now due to the aprons and just how much that really is adding on like an extra $100 million, extra $50
Tell me you don't want Birdman on your bench. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't want Shane Battier down there for
you? Yeah. I mean, ask a lot of the guys. I don't think they're looking to Birdman to fill a slot.
Cole? What was that?
Norris Cole.
Norris Cole was out there too.
Yeah. Nasty work, dude. Just cold business out there. But hey, they won. You know what I mean? So, and, just back to what I'm saying. I just feel like the whole anomaly of the Warriors is kind of understated at times with just how unique that was. Because I personally believe that team is beating any team ever constructed. Like, you take that back anywhere, I would put my money on it. I don't care who you're talking about. Shaq, all them, that's cool. That's cool. I'm with it. And I know that they're going to do well. I'm not sitting here saying those guys ain't going to do nothing. We go, but it's just really pound for pound, blow for blow. Like, who are we guarding out here? You know what I mean? Like, do y'all not realize who we got coming off the bench? Like, we have a real unit here coming in, like, ready to ball out, like, that might start on your team. Like, Andre Iguodala surely is starting on those Lakers teams. Surely starting potentially on some of those Bulls teams if they want to run the little small ball and shift Scotty to the 4, right? I mean, it's
Sean Livingston,
David,
whenever you need
David West. I mean, let's not, let's not act like that cupboard was empty at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? There was tons of ballers to choose from. So, I think that this Thunder team is special for what this league is now. And I just, if anybody ever wants to run it with the Warriors, I'm always down to bump heads in theory about who we think would win. But I just think for most of those teams, just to end this conversation and move forward, I just want you to honestly tell me, if you really get by guarding KD and Steph, which to me would be like you've damn near solved basketball. Who is guarding Klay Thompson? You know, who we've seen can put up 63 and 11 dribbles, 38 and a quarter, right? If you're not going to guard that guy, he's going to walk you just like Rocco right back to the crib.
R.I.P. my boy Rocco.
R.I.P. Rocco, for real. So anyway, you know, and the other big thing I really do feel about this Thunder team in terms of dynastic abilities, I think that it'll be very interesting to see what they do with these assets because they're going to get expensive kind of quick here. And so they still have a ton of draft assets. And so the question is, are they going to start packaging these up and trying to go after some top 5 picks to add to this team to where they can start, plugging and playing guys who could be the Hartenstein role, right? But he's a 9 overall pick. And they, kind of get him going in because they have Nikola Topic coming back. I mean, they got some ballers ready in the wings. So, well done. At the end of the day, it's sad for me to think about what I think the Warriors could have done against the Thunder. I think it would have been a much funner series, assuming we're all healthy. Now, we weren't deep or nothing, so I'm not sitting here saying, we were going to somehow run with them in that sense. But I mean, guns a-blazing. I would have rather seen what we could do offensively as opposed to what we witnessed with Minnesota, which was just a grind it out. The ball looked bigger than the hoop. Let me just put it that way. All right. So on to the trades. Lastly, actually, before we go on to the trades, East looks even more wide open than ever. No Dame, no Jason Tatum, no Halliburton. All 3 of these guys, Achilles, gone. All 3 of these guys wear 0. And all 3 of these guys are the stars of their team. Very interesting. Lots of moves have happened since then. But what do you think about that? Do you think that's true, false? What do you think? Is the East literally any man's taken now?
I mean, shoot, the East was pretty much done this whole season. Like, they've been a non-factor. Nobody was thinking, like, in all honesty, not to harp back on an NBA championship, like, the Indiana Pacers look like us. It's like the Warriors, where it's like, oh, we lost Steph. All right, well, we're going to make it competitive. Like, I feel like we could have been just as good as the top teams in the East. Like, we could have been the number 1 seed on the East side. That's how weak the East is. That's why there's even players considering being traded to other teams out there. Celtics, I don't know what's going to go on with them. It's going to be interesting how they're going to work out this roster moving forward, since it seems like maybe they're not giving up on this next season because there's no Jason Tatum, but they're reconfiguring the roster because of salary and everything, and a lot of pieces have been gone
and luxury tax. They're not about to pay that $150 or whatever it was.
So for Boston, it's about how is Jaylen Brown going to go moving forward? Is he going to be a 1? Is he going to take that alpha role and Jason Tatum take a little back seat after this season? With Tyrese Halliburton and the boys, I think they have a good enough team around them to build and all still be progressing well as young players. So I don't think that'll be an issue for them on the East side. And then last but not least, who was it? Who was the last name you said?
Dame Lillard.
Dame Lillard. I mean, you got Giannis. You got a chance if no matter what team it is. It's like having Jokic or LeBron or Steph out there. He's just such a good player, such another level that he's going to be able to propel his team to at least, I think, an 8-7 seed at the very least on the East side, even with a team that still is in flux, because even I've heard the Warriors have been in talk with trying to get somebody like Bobby Portis or something like that. So who knows what they're going to do in terms of roster movement for the Bucks, because they still have to consider what's going on with Dame Lillard's contract, but they also need to cater to Giannis and building a team around him that can compete. But with him, you still always have a chance, especially on the East side. So I think it's pretty washed, especially the way Cleveland crashed out during the playoffs. It showed some real vulnerability with that team. Will Evan Mobley take another step moving forward? That'll be a real question because we already know what we're getting from Donovan Mitchell. Darius Garland, is he going to be able to stay on the court for a whole season? Nobody knows. Strus, is he going to be somebody who can step up his game on his 3-and-D? Threes are still coming. The defense, I don't know if it's fully there. And then Jared Allen, is he going to be able to continue to be consistent and be a factor in terms of plus minus when he's on the court out there, especially when it comes down to teams playing small ball? So still wide open. I mean, we just named 5-6 teams, and there's teams like the Orlando Magic that just added somebody like Desmond Bane, which we're going to talk about, that are vying for a position because they see all these other teams that are usually the ones that are on top clearly are having some issues, whether it be injury or salary cap wise. So there's still some young teams out there in the East that can really compete, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the East is wide open now. I personally believe those 3 injuries are going to be very telling for next year. And I just think at this point, if you are a team that felt like you had any sense of a shot, you should be putting your chips towards the middle of the table, which we've seen some of the East teams since this has happened be a lot more curious, a lot more courageous in the moves that they're making, because I think a lot of these teams are even looking at their young, very, very young, pool of players and going, I mean, we might sneak in the back. We might get into the play-in just with what we got here if we draft right. I think that's how weak the East is and wide open it is right now. And I just think that the star power being gone over there makes it to where, a team like the Bucks could theoretically – the real problem is that, are you really going to win anything? Probably not, right? And so is it good enough to just go to the playoffs, make a run in the playoffs, and feel good about that in a very war-torn East? I don't know. But I think for teams like the Bucks, that's their only hope, and they're willing to go into luxury for a team that's probably in no way, shape, or form going to be able to compete fully. If you're willing to go into luxury, you can definitely make the playoffs, and you can definitely maybe even make a run. But with having that dead cash of Dame, you're not going to win it. You just can't, dog. The magic would just have to be too right for that to happen. And when you look at the rest of the East, in my opinion, when you look at the Pacers, I personally believe that they are not a team that I don't even know who sure, they have a lot of good players, but I feel like Halliburton was the only guy, and maybe Siakam, who really made you do anything at night and think about what you're going to do preparation tomorrow, and I think good basketball is good basketball, and that's awesome to watch. But, what happens when Nembhard's having an off night and he's already on a good night giving you 14, and it's like a bad night for him is now 3. And I'm not saying that it's like, oh, Tyrese is anti that or anything, but I'm saying that rotation of having these other point guards come behind your star, I think made those guys look a lot better. And I think Tyrese, brunted a lot of the load in terms of, shit, we just got to get this ship right, whatever, by any means necessary, however it works for me. And a lot of times that means you're going to eat. And I just think there's nobody to make you even double team on that team. So you got to have Siakam playing crazy out of the post, and he's not that great of a passer. So to assume that it'll just be all scoring, I think is a little bit, it's a lot to ask for a whole year. And then Boston, I mean, like Mitch has said, it's not even the same team. We're about to talk about it right now in terms of moves that have been made, but that team's already gutted. And it's clear they're going to take this year off. It's clear they know they can't compete. They've already been paying hundreds of millions of dollars in luxury tax these past couple of years. So they know that's over. They knew for a fact it might have even been over even if they won it.
Yeah.
So the fact that they burnt out the way they did and caught that injury bug, no doubt that they're throwing in the white flag. The real question is, do you even keep who we're going to talk about here in Anthony Simons? And so we'll move on to the trades here. But, all these teams, if I'm the Magic, if I'm the Sixers, I really have belief that I could just – Detroit, I really have belief. Even New York is like, let's just go get a guy. Let's ship Cat. Let's just go get somebody back dope for Cat. And let's just, dude, it's wide open, So let's talk a little bit about the trades real fast. And just so that we get through this and make sure we continue on with the show, we can just give grades on it. And then, a little commentary and then continue down the list because there have been several trades. So, Mitch already mentioned Desmond Bane traded from Memphis to Orlando. That signifies Orlando, we're going all in. I would grade this. It's really tough. I think that 4 first rounders is crazy.
Crazy.
However, the East is going to be so bad for so long, and the fact that they're going to be pillared by Paolo and Franz at a minimum, I think always keeps that pick in the teens at a minimum. So maybe it doesn't look as crazy. I do think Bane fits them very well. I do think that the way he plays, the 3-and-D, the leadership and the ability to really just not make a lot of mistakes and add a little bit of playmaking in there and the grit, I think is exactly what they need with a team that doesn't have any scoring punch, beyond those two guys that we spoke of. So I'm going to give the grade for Memphis. I really don't know what Memphis is doing, but to get the assets, I'm going to give them a nice B, right? Because that's a lot of assets to get. I just don't know what you're doing. I've heard they're going to re-sign Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay.
Is he going to want to sign that? And is that enough to then turn to Ja and say, "You ready? We ready? We're gonna do this together." I don't know, dude. I think they both might be like, "Yeah, that's cookies. Why don't you just get some more assets and just become the Thunder?" Which will be a fine route if they'd like to take it. But again, middle lining this is the worst place to be in the NBA, so that's why I give it a B, because I don't know where you're going. Orlando, I'm gonna give it a. I feel like I'm going to give it a B as well. I really want to give it a B+. I just think it's a steep price to pay. And what I will say is he's under contract. So a lot of these guys that we've been watching getting traded prior, they have been under contract.
Yeah.
And so the price is, this guy's under contract, and that contract's only going to look better over time. But until I see the market shift again, four unprotected,
steep price.
I don't even know if this guy's made an All-NBA team. I have no idea, but man. So, what grade do you give it?
All right, I'd say for the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm kind of in the same boat as you in terms of I don't know what they're planning on doing moving forward. They just took on KCP's contract. They got Ja Morant. You never know if he's going to be on the court. Jalen Wells right now is going to be their starting small forward, depending on if they make moves or not.
Right.
Like you said, Jaren Jackson could be re-signed, but would he really want to do that? You got a guy, Zach Edey, who still can't really play him when it's small ball out there, so it's still a liability. And then the second lineup is not any better. Brandon Clark, another guy famously hurt a lot. Santi Aldama has been a great revelation for them.
Yep.
He's somebody who's solid. But then next guy up for this small forward, Vince Williams Jr.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Right.
Cedric Coward, backup shooting guard. Who are you?
Right.
Point guard, Scottie Pippen Jr. We know you like more for your scandals with, your dad and dating same women and stuff. Cole Anthony's hanging around there. Luke Kennard, they got a bunch of nothing. G.G. Jackson is somebody who's supposed to be a star for them up and coming, but we haven't heard from him. Are they even going to give him a chance to start?
They got KCP, I think, too, in the trade, right?
Yeah. He's their starting shooting guard now. But that seemed more like a dump for the Magic. So for the Grizzlies, I give it a C just because they got those picks, and you never know what they could be.
4 unprotected first is never nothing to scoff at.
That's definitely a come up for them. So in terms of players, they got nothing. But in terms of potential draft picks that could turn into something, cool. But with those guys, are they going to even match your timeline? You'll have to make a whole bunch of other moves once those come to fruition anyway. So Memphis, you guys thought you had it when you guys had a tough series with us, with the Golden State back in the day. Nothing ever came from it, and you just got rid of your second best scorer on your team. And probably your most consistent guy other than Triple J. For the Orlando Magic, I'll give them a B+ because I think they made themselves a contender for an East Coast team.
Yep.
I think without a doubt, Desmond Bane brings, like you said, a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger, just somebody who knows what he's doing, never seems to get flustered out there on the court throughout the whole game. He plays every minute of it all the way until the last buzzer goes off. So he's somebody who can instill that in the rest of the team where Franz and Paolo Banchero could kind of just do their thing, and Desmond Bane could also do his, as well as taking over a leadership role as somebody who brings everybody together and does it with vocally as well as with his play. But I think also it just helps with, like what you said, it just fits so well with the rest of the players they have, and it kind of meshes with how these other teams that we just watched, like OKC, have kind of built the team where it's like we have our guy that we want, Paolo Banchero, and then we have guys around him who have no ego but are straight ballers and are going to continue to add to the game, just like Jalen Williams adds to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chet Holmgren adds to him, but they're both great players in their own respect as well.
Right.
And I think that's what you have here with Desmond Brains, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero. You have a solid point guard in Jalen Suggs. Wendell Carter Jr. still has never really shown that he's been that great of a player in the league so far. But he is a capable player out there as a big man, along with Mo Wagner. And those are kind of their big men in the front court, along with Jonathan Isaac, who's somebody who could maybe be producing moving forward after so many injuries to start his career. And another great, I feel like, multifaceted guard in Anthony Black, who could probably play point guard, shooting guard, and small forward, kind of just be a utility guy, and somebody who was, damn near a lottery pick?
Oh, for sure.
Like
Absolutely.
So they have some guys, Jet Howard, Caleb Houston, some guys who are really just core players that you need, role guys that really good at 3-and-D type playing and can really space the floor out and have a little bit of IQ out there that definitely needs a little bit of improving on, but has been solid in their careers. And getting Jace Richardson in this draft is a big come up. Somebody who's really surprised everybody through this last season for Michigan State. So I think Orlando Magic made a great move for being in the East. Because with this team, if this was in the West, they'd just be like everybody else, in my opinion, in terms of like talent and what the win and loss record would look like. But on the East, it's like, hey, all these teams that we just mentioned are all kind of slacking. We can put ourselves over the top to have that core three with a lot of solid players around them.
Absolutely. And then next we have KD traded to the Rockets for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and a 2025 first-round pick, which ended up turning into Kalaman. What is his name? Malak. What is his name? Malawak. Thank you. Malawak from the center from Duke, freshman. So real fast, I mean, for me, obviously KD, I think makes the Rockets a lot better. I think they didn't even give up a lot.
That team.
I think Jalen Green is, not needed over there, and then, Dylan Brooks, I think they'll feel that. They're going to need some more grit. But I think KD almost replaces the two of those seamlessly. Obviously, timeline-wise, he doesn't make a lot of sense, but they're trying to win now. I mean, they were the second team in the West last year, so they proved they were a little ahead of their timeline. And I think it's a good move for them in that sense of just saying, you know what, we believe in you guys, and we're going to give you, a booster pack to try to get this done in KD. And, without giving up Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, I mean, Cam Whitmore, Sengun. I mean, Amin Thompson, they didn't even get near any of their real assets, in my opinion. And Jalen Green was by far the most movable. And then, if I'm going to grade it out, I'm going to go ahead and give the Rockets an 8. And I just think because it's similar to kind of what we said in the Desmond Bane thing, where I think this does give them a shot. And I think that they had no other path to being more of a threat this year than they were last year. They had no path to it. And I think that they could only underachieve with the roster if they kept it. And I think this now actually gives them an opportunity to be better than they were last year. What that means in terms of record, I do not know. What that means in terms of health, I do not know. And then in terms of long-term outlook, he does say he wants to retire with them, which is great. But again, obviously he does not match their timeline. Now, in regards to the Suns, I would have given them, I mean, they were in a really hard place. So you got to understand KD, his contract, and then, him wanting to leave. I mean, they were just in a nasty place. So I think it is good that they were able to pull a Jalen Green. I think it was good that they were able to get a Dylan Brooks out of there. I think it really looks a lot better now that they were able to get the Malawak or whatever his name is. To me, I'm shocked that he slipped there to 10. I mean, to me, he was a top 5 pick. Definitely top 7. To me, he's the best center by far, in this year's draft, and super young. So I think it'll help them a lot in that sense. Jalen Green sitting there with Booker and with Beal, that's not good. So one of those guys is definitely going to have to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Green is on the move again because Bradley, if you don't lift that contract, dog,
man,
just free yourself, bro. Like, don't be where somebody doesn't even want you, my boy. This is just not even a good vibe. But if you don't do that, I'm pretty sure Jalen Green is just going to get sent out again for more assets or a player that fits that roster better. So I'll give him a C+, and that C+ really got raised to C+ because of that draft pick.
Bro, this team, the Suns, are just a bunch of empty calories. There's nothing going on with this team that makes me think they got any direction, that they got any chance of moving forward. Like, whether they do something now or later, it's going to be a full retool of the team. Like, the guys on this team are all just fly-by-night guys. Grayson Allen, Bradley Beal. Nobody even wants Bradley Beal on their team. Like, he's just collecting a check at this point. I mean, does he even play anymore?
He should go back to Washington, man.
Yeah, he needs to.
Should have never left.
They got Mark Williams, which is cool. Ty Washington hasn't really panned out. Yeah, that team's looking rough. It looks like they were just trying to unload at this point. I say, man, get D Book up out of there because he deserves to go to a contending team. Not be on this flustered roster of guys that are just kind of would be role players on any other team. Like, there's no real starters on this team like that. So for them, I give them a D because they did not set themselves up very well moving forward. And as a result of having KD on your team, this is what happens. He comes over, you have high expectations, and they fail. And that's what my only thing I had to say to the Rockets is hopefully it's not just amazing on paper, because anywhere KD has went besides when he's been with us has been all downhill. So we can talk nice and be like, yeah, on paper it's looking good, and before the games actually happen, then it's going to be great. But make sure you actually do something this time, KD, because you do have a good squad with you like you've had these last 3 or 4 times. But do something with them. Show the world that it's not just Steph and his team that can get you somewhere. Show that you can do it with a group of guys. You, on your own. I give the Rockets an A in terms of this trade. Like you said, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Malawak for KD right now with the way your team looks, huge upgrade. Huge upgrade. Now it's up to you guys as a team to implement him well, play him with the right guys, and come out on top. Because to my point earlier with the last trade for the Magic aren't even setting up to this team. So that's why I reiterate, East, they did a good job for the East side, because this is the kind of gauntlet you got to go against when you're coming to the West side. And this is the only kind of trade that on the West side will make a difference. You need a superstar on your team to compete in the West. So A+ for the Rockets for pretty much fleecing the Suns and getting over on them because they were in a bad situation.
Next, we have Drew Holiday to the Trailblazers for Anthony Simons. There's a couple other pieces that are always moving in these, but for the sake of time, I'm not covering every last piece, just the main pieces that were exchanged. Drew Holiday pretty much was a salary dump from Boston. Anthony Simons is a good young player, but he's on last year of a contract. So at the end of the day, Boston, the likelihood of him re-signing with them is very, very low. Mm-hmm. So both ways, it was pretty much, in a certain sense, a salary dump. It's a little confusing for me with the Trailblazers to take on Drew Holiday's contract with the position they're in, which is they're not going to compete, not even be close. They're shooting for lottery balls for sure. So taking on a contract like that, unless you're sure you can move it for more assets, just weird. But, they've been known to do things like that as well, where they'll take somebody on and just try to reroute it and just look at it again as, the best way to, stacking up some of these assets, some of these draft picks, and again, opening up their books for whenever they feel like, they got the right roster to be cashing out. I would give, I think it's just a weird trade. These next couple, I think, they don't even require much talking because they're not the same as those other two, which I think will actually shift the league in a certain way. I'll give the Celtics. I'll give them. I'll give them a. Really, I'll give them a B. Because at the end of the day, I'll even give them a B plus. I think at the end of the day, they don't have a choice, and to even get anything back for Drew Holiday in this position, I don't know what they'll do with Anthony Simons, and obviously that contract can't make him like uber valuable. But the reality is that that's a good young player if they decide to run it with him this year. Great 3-point shooter, high volume offensive guy, not great defensively, but can replace some of what you're missing in Tatum there. And just a much better fit money-wise and play-wise if he is going to stick around. And then if you move him, I actually think he's one of the more valuable assets in the sense of if a team does know they can re-sign him, you may not get the most for him, but you're going to have a lot of suitors.
Yeah.
So that's always good you're not going to have a lot of suitors for Drew Holiday, right? That contract, that age, only going to be a very few. So I think it just opened up their market. So then for the Blazers, I'm going to give them a D. I mean, for me, I just don't even know what we're doing here. At the end of the day, if you move it on, I can come back and regrade it if there's more assets that you gain out of this. But as of now, you just get a D.
Yeah. Really, though, you can do the grades for those ones because, like you said, not much talking needs to be done. My only input for this is this clearly shows what a good organization looks like compared to one that's not very good.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like Boston made a smart, logical move that needed to be made moving forward.
Yeah.
And the Blazers just decided to be the team that was like, okay, we don't have any direction, so we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And we'll take on a bad contract that's not going to get us anything. Like you said, we might even have to waive him so he can go to another team or something like that. Like we might not even keep him because what is he going to do here? He can go hang out with his wife, who's an Olympian, and just do his thing over there. He's already shown that when she had bad health, he was like, "Hey, I'm out of here." So,
right.
If I'm on the Blazers, if he's on the Blazers, he's definitely like, I'm not really tripping about this team. So, bad move by a bad organization, which what they continuously do. Their best players right now are Shaedon Sharpe and Jeremy Grant.
Disgusting.
Like two guys
Scoot
that are
Henderson,
two guys who would be like pretty much their whole team of pieces in trades.
Right.
None of them are really guys who have panned out at all yet in their career. Even though, granted, some of them are still young, but there's really no direction over there. So, bad move by a bad organization. Typical Boston, good move by a good organization.
Facts. Next we have, and this is the last one I'll do a grade for, and then the rest of them I'm just going to state out. So, CJ sent over to Washington, swap for Jordan Poole, who was headed to New Orleans. Again, for me, I actually think for Washington, this is good. Why do I say that? Similar to what we said before. I think the East is wide open. I think Washington is one of those teams that have now made themselves good enough to look at that play-in, right? Like, I don't think they're going to make playoffs, and if they did, it'd be sneaking into the 8. But I think that they now have enough vets, enough presence over there, enough guys that just hoop to where if you think Indiana's going to make it, trust me, Washington has a shot. They have a lot of youngsters with now enough of a blend of guys who are seasoned vets. Chris Middleton, you got Marcus Smart, you got Brogdon, you got CJ McCollum now, right? So those are hoopers. CJ is good for Dub 5, which I don't know what Jordan Poole's good for. But, different kind of player. I just think that the contract, CJ's is less. So all of it just looks better to me in terms of if you're Washington. So Washington, I'm going to go ahead and pretty much give you an A. And I think that A minus. Let's do A minus. Because at the end of the day, you did get older and who knows. But Jordan Poole, I just think that's a bad contract. And then so in terms of New Orleans, New Orleans needs trying anything to keep everything going, to try to keep Zion locked. All this stuff. But they are a mess. I don't know what the plan is for him over there. Seems like a lot of the same. He is a better 3-point shooter than some of those guys are used to playing with. But in terms of decision-making, in terms of playing defense, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for New Orleans. So I'm going to go ahead and give them, I'll give them a C minus. Okay. Then we have Kristaps to the Hawks. I don't even want to talk about who he was traded for. It was a 3-team trade, so it doesn't really matter. George Niang, people were moving. But really, at the end of the day, it was a salary dump again. Boston needing to get under the luxury tax. I think for the Hawks, this is a great trade. I think you take it on. Why not? Yeah. Who cares? You take the money on. I think that lineup now with Kristaps, assuming he's healthy, again, in this wide open East, makes them a ton more dangerous. And then for the Celtics, I just think it is what it is, right? They didn't make it to where they wanted to be, which is the promised land, and they got gutted in the process, so they knew that similar actions were following. Yeah. Then lastly, we have Mark Williams to the Suns. That was a draft day trade, which was also interesting because they drafted the Brody from Duke, who also was a center. But, hey, all of a sudden, the Suns do have, a formidable center position, which is cool. But, for the Suns, I think it's all just not going to help them win, but it does make that position a lot better. So I'll give them a C+. And then for Charlotte, I mean, honestly, they clearly hate Mark Williams. And there's clearly something that I haven't seen from Mark Williams that is really, really, really a serious medical red flag because of how just willing they've been just get him gone. And so for that reason, I'm going to give him a B because I think, they drafted pretty decent, I think. At the end of the day, they're constantly moving their timeline back. So, if Mark Williams isn't going to be a guy that you think is going to be able to fit with these players, they went and drafted, what's that dude, Kalkbrenner from Creighton. Yeah. 7-footer who shoots threes. They like that better. He blocks shots as well. Hey, now, go ahead then. Do your thing, right? We have Lakers sold for $10 billion to Walter Nolan, who owns the Dodgers. Bought by Jerry Buss in 1979 for $67.5 million. So for those of you who don't do math, that would be a come up of 9.999. Lots of billions, $9 billion plus dollars. So well done to y'all. And Walter Nolan, I mean, apparently the Lakers are in good hands. We all see what Walter Nolan did with the Dodgers and has been doing. Next, we have the NBA Draft. Cooper to the Mavs, as we all know. Wow, what a revelation. Saved Nico Harrison's life for now. Keeping him alive, keeping him off of a stake. And then we have Dylan Harper going second to the Spurs.
A lot of guards out there.
And a lot of not shooting. Nobody's shooting the ball over there. But, everybody can drive to the cup and everybody can play make. But Victor's the best shooter. Victor's the best shooter out of all those guards, which is nuts. Then you got VJ Edgecombe, who I love, going at third. And I think a lot of that is because of this debacle that Ace Bailey has brought up where he wouldn't go see teams, thinking he's big and bad. For those of you who haven't seen that, just go on Twitter. You'll see a bunch about his agent himself. It is a joke of a situation. And that is what happens when you think you are somebody who you're not. You are not Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan was taking workouts. Okay? You're not LeBron James. LeBron James was taking workouts. Okay? So this is what happens when you do that. And I laughed when you ended up in crusty old Utah at 5th, thinking you were going to somehow, you weren't tripping off $1 million, so you were going to skip the Sixers, you were going to skip the Hornets, and you were going to skip the good old Utah Jazz, and you were trying to get to Washington, and you were trying to get to the Brooklyn Nets. Well,
didn't happen, buddy.
That's what happens when you listen to those unks of yours or whatever that is going on over there, because it ain't working. Okay, and so not only did you lose some mills, I personally believe you've never been to Utah.
Not many have.
You have gone to a desolate place, my friend.
Hang out with AJ DeBonza.
Dude, they're going to welcome you with racist slurs.
I bet you they get the first pick. Again, they're going to get DeBonza, and they have Ace Bailey and DeBonza out there.
All you're going to see is signs that say, "We wish you were Cooper." That's it. Where's Cooper? Okay? But he's a great guy, and I think that, what's crazy to me is he skipped the 76ers because he said he wanted play time, and he skipped Charlotte, and he was trying to skip Utah because he felt both of those places weren't for him and were not great organizations. And the NBA, the league said, "Son,
you're getting sunned.
You are our son." You know what I mean? This is not reverse roles. So Con Kneppel goes 4 to the Charlotte Hornets because of Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey goes 5 to the good old Jazz, as we've said. And then we have, let me pull this up, lovely Trey Johnson at 6 to Washington, which I love out of Texas. Jeremiah Fears going 7 to New Orleans, which is also a good pick. Igor Demin, which is very interesting that he got drafted to the Nets because he's a great point guard but can't shoot a lick of things. Colin Murray Boyles 4 from South Carolina goes to the Raptors. And then to round out the top 10, Malawak, as we said, from Duke, goes via Houston to the Suns. Pretty crazy draft. I think that I like what Washington did with Trey Johnson, and I like what the Hornets did with just avoiding Ace, and I think they got a lot of good players with their 4 picks that they took. Any teams you wanted to highlight before we move on very quickly to the Warriors haul?
No, I really just want to get to that Warriors talk, man. That wasn't that much excitement to me besides the fact that there were so many trades in the draft.
Right.
That I was just not very interested in a lot of these players, if I'm being honest.
Right. So the Warriors, the Magical Warriors, we had 41st pick, and we ended up trading back to get 2 second-rounders. I think it was 51st and 59th.
Mm-hmm.
That turned into Alex Tooney at 51st. Or the 51st pick, excuse me. That was Alex Tooney out of Australia, 6'8" in shoes, or 6'8" outside of shoes. Pretty good shooter, pretty good rebounder. Can kind of shift from a stretch 4 to a 3. And then we got the shooting guard, Richard, I'm not sure exactly how it is, out of Florida. Excuse me, the national champs. 3-and-D guy, low turnovers. And I think at the end of the day, he's a guy that you could look to at being kind of one of those off-the-bench roles that GP was with a little more offense. How do you feel about the 2 draftees real fast?
I feel like they're typical second-round guys.
Right.
Literally everything
Late second
you
round
see
too.
on here has nothing to do with actual basketball. His strengths are intelligence, versatility, and maturity. The verdict, he checks some boxes with a feel for the game, consistent motor, length, and anticipation. So he's just like a big guy who's out there. Hopefully he has skills that actually go towards basketball other than his physical attributes. But, hopefully these guys can come up. We got Taron Armstrong as well from the NBL, right?
Mm-hmm.
From last season. Was a two-way kind of guy. I'm more excited to see what he's got for us because I'm hoping that he's a little bit more on track compared to these guys who hopefully might just surprise us.
Yeah, Alex Tooney definitely is hyped. I'm hyped to have him for sure. His pro comp is like a Bojan Bogdanovic, like a real sniper from 3 and somebody that has enough body to like guard and be present there. So I think we got real steals there, and I definitely would give the Warriors like an A- and A for their draft haul. These 2 guys are going to fit this team perfectly. And I definitely think Mitch is underselling it a little bit with these guys because we've done super well with all our draft picks, especially our late ones. So, when you look at other teams drafting second rounders, you don't see none of them getting any burn the way we get our second rounders in there. And they've made real impact. And so you can see that when we do draft in the second round, we really look for a skill and we isolate it and we go for somebody who's a specialist in that. And I think we've done that again here just with perfection. And so hopefully we can add a free agent big in there. That would be helpful, I think, to kind of round out this roster and help the rest of these guys. But, man, I love these 2 picks. I think that this is amazing. And I don't know where he was getting that report from or the scouting report. But they definitely have a bunch of scouting reports.
Just the NBA draft thing.
Yeah. All I have is that his pro comps, which is also through Bleacher Report and ESPN, is Bogdanovic. And so if any of you guys have seen him, just a high-quality player and a dude that for most teams that run our style of offense, like we've always wanted a guy like that. We've just never, sadly, been able to fill that role and never pulled the trigger on the trade for any of those veterans that have been able to slot in. We just haven't been on a run to do it. So I think those 2 just phenomenal pickups, and it'll be very interesting to see how quickly we can get them to it. But I heard a lot of rumblings around Alex Tooney getting drafted in the high 40s, like when we were originally going to pick. So they must have, really pulled some magic to be able to kind of like shift back, still get their guy, and add another pick in there. So we'll see how it turns out.
They learned from their Scotty Barnes days, Don't announce it too soon.
Right.
The guys that you like.
Right. Well, what's super interesting is that they had us on Alex Tooney this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so clearly we, must have been a little reverse psychology.
I This is a random question, but were none of those Florida bigs this past season draftable?
Yeah, none of them came out.
They all went back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
they have
Tooney
a cool little
ranked as the number 37 prospect overall, which is pretty impressive to get him in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But again, a lot of this, when you're talking second round picks, a lot of that is going to be fit where you end up going. And so I think that's why we have success is, we're one of those teams where we know what we would want out of you to fit. And without that, second round picks can be tougher than they need to be, I think. Next, we have the MLB. So we have the Giants trade for Rafael Devers, which is humongous from the Red Sox. So, one of the top 15, top 10 hitters in the league right now, lefty coming over. Should be great for them. We haven't had a star like that. He's under contract for the next 8 years.
Woo, long time.
So that's going to be amazing. He's 28 years old. So, in baseball, it's not a lot of running, not a lot of stuff. There's athleticism in baseball, but it's not one of these sports that you see guys, because of the physical demands, not being able to continue competing, assuming that they're able to still swing the bat, still able to do those things. But speed, footwork, that kind of stuff, it can go, and guys still are able to do super well in baseball late into it. And so with DH being in both leagues, he's already DHing now, but he can DH from 33 on if he wants. And I think that will be a great pickup for us in the long term. And I don't think we gave up a lot. I think we gave up Kyle Harrison, who's pretty much to me the jewel of that trade. And for me, I don't even know if he was going to crack our rotation this year. He was doing well, but not well enough to where people were feeling like, we're sold on what we originally thought was pretty much a surefire high-end starter. And then we traded Tibbs. I think his name is James Tibbs, who is dope. But again, he was one of those guys that I wasn't really excited that we drafted. I thought there were other guys we could have drafted in the 11 slot when we picked him that just would have had more high upside. He seemed like a super safe pick. And I personally just think where the Giants are at, we're not good enough in our minor league system to be taking safe picks. It's like, come on, man, we got to hit home. We got to get some stars in here, So, getting a guy like Devers with a contract locked down,
and keeping Bryce
perennial, yeah, exactly, keeping Bryce Eldridge, and the rest of everybody else who's on the team. Job well done. So super exciting. And I was at the game yesterday and watched him hit a big bomb, which was awesome. Second with him being on the team. So for the Giants, I give it, a big fat A. And for the Red Sox, I'll give them a nice, C+, B-. I think this is what they do. They just don't do great business with their stars. They get them angry and they get them gone. And somebody else usually gets to come in with a whole lot of nada and scoop them up.
Yep.
And we did it again, just like the Dodgers did last time with Mookie Betts.
Right. So,
Mitch, take it away. I don't know if you want to talk about the trade or just, baseball in general, but here we are with the MLB roundup. So, do whatever's best, man.
We could just make it quick. You're the Giants guy. That was the player that you guys got.
Excited.
And it's an exciting move.
Yes.
So I thought you handled that well. I'm just going to give a little rundown. The Midsummer Classic. We got the All-Star game coming up soon, and we got some players already on the voting ballot that have been up there high as the 1 and 2 guys, potential starters for the All-Star game. American League side, we got Cal Raleigh leading the league in home runs, absolutely killing it.
The big dumper.
Alejandro Kirk for the Blue Jays is another candidate to be somebody who could potentially be up there, but Cal Raleigh is going to be the starter. First base, we got Paul Goldschmidt. A seasoned vet for the New York Yankees.
Is he still batting over 3?
Batting 280, or what is he, 288?
I'll take it.
So,
dude, damn. Dude,
he's killing it. He's
timeless.
a seasoned hitter.
Timeless.
He's a veteran, professional hitter right there. Along with Vladimir Guerrero of the Blue Jays.
Beast.
He's an absolute beast, so he's somebody to look out for. Second base, we got Gleyber Torres having a great season for the Tigers.
Is he on Detroit?
Yeah, he's going crazy right now. And then Jackson Holliday, definitely off the hype of being a top prospect out there. Third base, we got Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman, the guy that the Red Sox replaced Rafael Devers with and Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez.
Real talk.
Your typical every year third base all-star.
Studs.
Shortstop, we got Bobby Witt out there and the young athletic out there, and Jacob Wilson, who's been absolutely killing it for the A's. Somebody who could definitely even push for 200-hit season. He's a professional hitter as well. May not be a lot of pop, but the guy puts the bat on the ball. Outfield, we got Riley Green, Javi Baez, 2 Tigers out there. We got Mike Trout,
crazy.
seasoned vet, still showing he's got his skills. And then Stephen Kwan of the Guardians is out there doing his thing, showing his speed and his pop as well. His ability to get on base is just as good as anybody in the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
Designated hitter, we got Ryan O'Hearn and Ben Rice, 2 guys who are very new to the MLB in their first couple of years. They're showing out apparently in the designated hitter department.
Right? I'm like,
they're
what?
on the ballot.
Right.
Man, maybe other names just like Yordan Alvarez haven't been showing out as much to get enough hype behind them, but those 2 are really showing out. And then on the National League side at catcher, we got Will Smith of the Dodgers, Carson Kelly of the Cubs. Carson Kelly hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, but when he's been in the game, he's been absolutely killing it for them. Cubs having an amazing season so far this year. First base, same names that we always hear. Pete Alonso of the Mets, who are killing it, and Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers, another top team, another top hitter in the league.
Perennial all-stars.
All-star. Second base, Tommy Edman of the Dodgers and Ketel Marte of the Diamondbacks. Hey, man, whoever was talking smack about Ketel Marte's mom to him on the field, get out of here, bro.
Crazy, dog.
Ain't no time for that, bro.
Right. Rest up his mom, man.
Yeah, rest up to his mom, man. Shouts out to you, Ketel Marte. We got love for you over here, bro.
Facts.
Third base, Max Muncy for the Dodgers, team that's always going to have a bunch of names out there for all-stars. But then the guy who's been doing it for years and years and years, got platinum glove over there at third base, my boy Manny Machado, making it look easy, even if he's throwing it all the way from the foul ground to first base.
Beast.
Shortstop, Francisco Lindor and Mookie Betts. Who would have guessed it? New York Mets and Dodgers players absolutely dominating this season. Outfield, we got our young gun, Pete Crow Armstrong. Going to be a guy putting up 20 stolen bases, 20 home runs, going absolutely crazy for
Pop
the Cubs.
and speed, dude.
Kyle Tucker, another Cub. Basically, the whole Cubs team has been showing out this season. That's why they got these guys represented, as well as Andy Pages for the Dodgers, Teoscar Hernandez as well. Our boy Juan Soto for the Mets, who has been coming on strong lately, has about like 6 home runs in the last like 5 games or something like that.
Beast.
So he's really,
don't doubt it,
really ramping up right now.
Don't doubt him.
After missing the beginning of the season, my boy Ronald Acuna Jr., his name is on the board, but it also helps.
He's a beast.
The All-Star game is going to be in Atlanta this season, so that's definitely a reason to have him on the board, as well as somebody who's been killing it ever since he's come off the injured list. And I believe he's going to be participating in the Home Run Derby.
Right.
So there's a lot of excitement there.
So is Cal Raleigh.
Yeah, so is
That's
Cal
going to be
So
Raleigh, yeah.
it's going to be an exciting one this year. We got, basically all those players besides those DHs that I named. But
boy,
Ben Rice, Ryan O'Hearn, you guys still get your shout out as well.
Right, and that's what, Yankees and Baltimore respectively or something?
Yep, 2 East boys.
Whew, yikes.
So make sure you guys tune in to that. Continue to watch throughout this season. There's been a lot of good ball this year. Even though it's just the beginning of the season, it's still been exciting.
And is that all fan voted?
It's fan voted.
So that's how there can be those.
Yeah.
Because some fan bases, it just gets crazy.
Well, I think it can be a mix. I think the coaches and the GMs can get involved because there was that one year back in the day where all the fans voted for Royals players.
Right.
And it was just like, all right, bro, it's not a pocket.
It's ridiculous.
We don't need all these guys in there just because everybody in Kansas City is voting for their players.
Right. Because some of those names, I'm like, I mess with y'all. But, like, do we need to do, like, comparative stats? Because, like, across your position, you're not Himothy. Like, what?
So this time looking like there's a lot of quality players out there.
Facts. All righty. And before we wrap today up, we have Barcelona in the soccer realm of things. Also, the United States have advanced on to the knockout stage in the Gold Cup. So be on the lookout for that. They do play Costa Rica, which is never light. That is never light.
Watch your anklets.
I saw a bunch of people talking anyway. We'll talk about that next time. A bunch of podcasts have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. They're like, oh, easy, Pete, Costa Rica. It's like, oh, no, we've never caught an easy fade from Costa Rica. People's elbow. People's elbow. But anyway, so, check that out. That'll be tight. And there's a bunch of other teams that have advanced on, but now it's the knockout stage. So Gold Cup gets very interesting from there. Also, knockout stage of the World Cup of Soccer or Club Soccer. Yes. And so that is now, I think, deserving of a couple watches because they're in the knockouts and some of those matchups are better. Some of those very poor teams are out of it. Barcelona, my boys, have signed Joan Garcia, who's one of the young, probably the best goalkeeper in La Liga. And young, 24 years old. So he's signed over from Espanyol. Our rivals took a little bit of fandangling, as it always does with Barca, because we are not the best financially off. But we made that happen for 25 mil. We also signed Rooney Bargi, who is a youngster from Copenhagen. He's actually Swedish, I believe, but he was playing out in Denmark. This dude is 19 years old, absolute beast. Rooney. Knocked Man United out of this past year's Champions League. And so it's crazy because his name is Rooney, obviously. Right. If anybody knows Man United, they were led by a guy, Rooney, for a while. And then we also have agreed to terms with Nico Williams, the left winger from Atletico Bilbao, also the little brother of Inaki Williams. Thank you. And so, it's been a long time coming. We got a lot of guys on the Spanish team, Barcelona does, who mesh very well with Nico Williams. They're very excited. And if you guys haven't watched Spain, they right now are pretty much the most entertaining team in world soccer right now in terms of just tournament in, tournament out. So, you bring that team in club side, can only bear good fruit, I think. So be on the lookout for that. Very exciting summer coming for Barcelona. And then lastly, NHL, the draft happened tonight. Let's go. Sharks had the number 2 pick, even though we were slated with the highest odds to get number 1. But that is okay. And we ended up picking a guy named Michael Misa, number 2 overall, who apparently was the bona fide number 1 forward in this year's draft. The number 1 pick ended up being a defenseman, which is pretty rare. But this guy apparently is just a winger and a center, so he can go inside, outside. Should complement very well with Celebrini and Will Smith and Eklund and some of these other young guys that we're building up, and Sam Dickerson coming in on defense. But this guy, he had 50 goals and 60 assists last year. Going crazy. So when you talk about stats, that's a bucket, a goal, a golazo, an ice sandwich, whatever you want to call that. Baby. Yeah, thank you. Exactly.
Hat-trick hero. So, 62 goals in 65 games in the OHL.
Cooking. And he was the number 1 pick 2 years ago in that league. So we are sure building a team. A lot of people have the Sharks slated as the team of the 2030s, which I think is very interesting. But like the way that we're building this out, they're like, it's going to be nasty to deal with those kids when they grow up.
Hopefully they can get over that hump and actually get a Sharks team to the fucking Stanley Cup and win it.
Right.
There's a lot of years where we was
but I'll be there for y'all. But I'll be there for y'all because we do have a generational talent, and that always makes things different. When you can get a Celebrini, when you can get a generational talent, I think that is what gives people the cojones to sit back and go, all right, the 30s could be there, right? So anyway, we appreciate y'all. Make sure, on upcoming shows, if you end up needing to reach out to Reek before this, do that for us. You know what I'm saying? Because we all just trying to be here on time, and it's all love. And you never know, he might take another nap. So, make sure you check in with my boy. But in all seriousness, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to keep us rocking and rolling in the algorithm. And until next time, we hope y'all stay safe. Peace, love, and happiness. We out.